All right, welcome to this live stream that I'm doing for the March Sculpture Challenge. And so if you're interested in participating, this is the pose. There's going to be a link to that pose over on the Patreon channel. And to participate and to be able to win what will be the prize for this, you'll get one of the sculpting tools that I've made, custom hand forge AJK sculpting tools. Let me get a close up of that. So these tools are some of the ones that I'm doing a Kickstarter for these right now, and they'll be the prize for the sculpting challenge that's going on. But you have to be a patron at $10 a month over on Patreon or Gumroad for that. So be sure to join Patreon if you'd like to be part of this next challenge. And the goal is just to do something similar to what we did last month. There's no size parameters for it, but this one I'll probably do a little bit smaller. Instead of having a nail for support, I'm going to just try to put it on a board and see how that goes. And the Kickstarter is going right now, and so I've started that Kickstarter campaign to sell these tools. If you're interested, let me put a link for that because I don't think I included a link for that. For this dab tool, I'll put a link. Comment to link. And then also this live stream will probably only be available until, or it'll be available for patrons once it's done, but it won't be available just on my channel after that. And so on this live stream, I really wanted to do it as if you'd never sculpted before, as if this was the first time, your first time sculpting. So I wanted to just kind of explain what I'm doing. And so let's go ahead and get into that. So I'm going to start by cutting 3 sections of wire. This is about a little bit longer than my arm. This will make a figure that's about a little bit less than like 2/3 of this. Let's go a little bit smaller. We don't need a huge figure. Smaller the figure, the quicker we can do it. So let's go about that length. We're going to cut 2 equal sections and then 1 section that's just a little bit smaller. So about 1 and then an equal section to that first section that we just did. We're just going to line that up. Cut 2. This is a method where you don't really need, it's kind of like an eyeball method for figuring out the figure. So I'm not using the cranial units, which I recommend if you want like a more specific, more precise way of measuring out the figure, then you can use cranial units, and there's a video on the channel showing that method of building wire armatures. But this is just a simple, quick, easy method that gets you just about there if you're already familiar with the proportions of the figure. So this is thick wire. This is probably 8 gauge aluminum wire. I got this from a metal scrap yard. It was in these thick spools that had like 8 of these wires wrapped around, and I grabbed a bunch. I wish I grabbed more though, because afterwards they stopped selling it. But I probably just need to find another scrap yard around here, because I think this is what they use for power lines and things. And so when they cut off the ends of those, I think that's what this stuff is. So we've got our 3 pieces. So let's go ahead and build the armature. We're going to start about 2/3 of the way up. And we're going to begin with the arms. 2/3, is that 2/3? Maybe that's a little bit. Yeah, that's about 2/3. We're going to bend this out, and this is going to be the arms for the figure. Like that. Okay. Now we're going to twist these together. We're twisting them together at the spine. So I just kind of lock these two, and we're just going to twist as tight as we can get it, because if it's loose, then as we pose the armature, it'll just get more loose. Then we're going to twist until I feel like the spine is about the right proportion compared to the arms. So the arms are going to come down the leg just a little bit. So I feel like maybe I twisted too far. I'll come back just a little bit so that we have those arms. Wish I had more length on the arms, but we'll do that. That might be a little bit short. Okay, now we're going to take this section of wire, the extra piece, so that here we have the arms and the legs. Now we're going to grab the extra section of wire, that third piece that's a little bit shorter, and I'm going to hold this with the pliers so it doesn't move around too much. Just wrap this as tight as I can. Oops. Wrap this one around the spine as tight as I can get it. Come on. There we go. I like to just follow the twist that I've already established all the way up to the neck. There we go. And then just up like that. And that is the head. And let me wrap this around. And these pliers with wire cutters I just got from the Dollar Tree. They were selling those. And I just try to grab them whenever I see them. Okay. Now let's go ahead and pose this. So it starts looking a little bit less like sections of wire, a little bit more like a wire figure. So we can start with, let's start with the shoulders. Bring that down. Helps to grab the wire with the pliers for a more sharp bend exactly where you want it. Yeah, that's about right. Then for the pelvis, I'm gonna come out a little bit less than the shoulders because this is a female, or because if it's too wide, we can just run into it. So the pelvis will be wider, but I don't want it too wide here at the beginning. I'm actually going to push the hip up a little bit. That will shorten the spine. Okay, now we got a figure with really long legs, so we're going to take care of that. But let's do the head first. So how I like to do this is just grab it. Ooh, these pliers are coming apart. Grab it and then twist. Twist, twist, twist. Until I feel like that's a good shape for the neck. Is that a mirror? Somebody's asking. Yeah, it's a mirror with some masking tape around it. So there we have the armature starting to look a little bit more like a figure, but let's keep going. So the end of the fingers, if I imagine that this is the end of the fingers, that usually comes about halfway between the hip and the knee. So I'm just going to come down another section, kind of eyeball it. Feel like the knee should be about right there. And I'm going to bend that. Match it on the other side. Bend that. There we have the knees. Then the foot is the same distance for like the femur to the knee and the knee to the bottom of the foot is the same distance. So I'm just gonna fold that over. So there we have the foot length. Bend it over. Wait, whoops. There we have another foot. Alrighty. So here we have the feet, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do like giant feet, but these are gonna kind of disappear into the ground. I'm gonna put clay and then put these down, and then attach these to the base. Let me zoom in just a little bit. So here we go on that. Then let's do the elbow as well. Got the elbow about right there. Kind of just eyeballing this, and we'll see how we do. If we need to move things, we can do it later. Elbow, and then the wrist is maybe like right there. I'm able to do this, you know, because I've seen a lot of I've made many wire armatures. And so this one is not a perfect armature. There's probably some things that are a little bit off, but it's good enough. And so now I want to copy the pose. Let's pause this. So we got this leg coming forward, down, the other leg coming back. That makes this kind of a contrapposto. Somebody was commenting over on Patreon, one of the patrons, that this was kind of a simple pose. And so, but I don't want it to be a simple pose. I want to kind of add the gesture. So increase the gesture, increase the interest, and that starts with the armature. So I'm going to I'm going to kind of exaggerate that contrapposto where the feet are going one way and the shoulders the other way, another way. I'm actually going to lengthen this just a little bit because I do feel like the torso is maybe a little bit short. So we got this up, this one down. Both elbows are kind of coming back, and then we can bury the hands because the wrists are coming. We can bury those inside the torso. Okay. This This one, the foot is turning out a little bit. Okay, so now I feel like the pose is starting to come together, starting to have something resembling what we're seeing here. And I'm thinking about, so when you're capturing the pose with wire armature, you're just trying to push the gesture as much as you can. And so if I see that the gesture is kind of, actually let's go to this side. So here, right here, there's this big C curve right here where the body is kind of just coming down that way. Let me make sure that I get that gesture, that C curve gesture. And then she's kind of coming over this hip. I've maybe exaggerated that a little bit. Move this up just a little bit. This one's locked. They're both kind of locked. Okay, I think that's pretty close. And we'll continue to make modifications as we add clay, but for now that should be just about good. So let's grab some clay and start solidifying what's happening. First thing I'm going to do is just stick it to the base. Oh no. Should have warmed up this clay. But right now I'm just going to attach this to the base about and with armatures that are this size, 12 inches or so, you usually don't need a lot to keep it connected to the base, and for support you don't need a ton of support. And you might even just hold the whole figure and armature in your hand as you're working, though when I am recording I try not to do that because then I might not be showing exactly what I'm doing, or it's harder to see, so I try to just put it down, and that way you can see what's happening. Couple pieces of clay to put that down, and I might move the position of the feet. Everything's pretty easy to move around at this point with this type of armature and setup. Okay, gonna cover the feet. And then we can start to cover the armature with a thin layer of clay. To do that, we just squeeze out like a long like hot dog bun, and then the wire's the hot dog, and we just squeeze that, wrap that around. There we go. Let's zoom in a little bit. You can see that I've tried to push the gesture more than what I'm seeing, and that's a good habit to form whenever you're doing these studies and whenever you're starting with the wire armature, because typically when you start adding clay, things get stiffer. And so by starting with the gesture pushed, as things stiffen up and move towards the center, you still have enough gesture. Whereas if you start with it perfect, then usually as you start sculpting, it loses some of that gesture. Should have warmed up the clay. Maybe I'll have to do another session where I warm it up. It does look just like the feet are ginormous, but we'll just build out a base of clay basically, and we should have plenty of room to do that. The legs are plenty long. They're longer than what we need, and so we can bring the feet up a little bit as we put down a base of clay. In fact, I probably should have added more of a base. That was something that I got marks against me when I did a sculpture competition. They said that I didn't have a base like made out of clay. It looked like the sculpture was just standing on top of the wood, similar to this, where there's no like base built up in clay. And they didn't like that. Though at that competition I felt like my sculpture looked the most like the model, so I kind of felt gypped that time. But that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Somebody's asking what clay I'm using. This is Chavant NSP medium clay. This is an oil and wax based clay that doesn't dry out. It's for mold making, and so I just leave the armature inside the sculpture. Don't worry about removing it. If I was using water-based clay, I'd probably just use a nail, like a long nail that could be removed, that could pull straight out for support when the clay is like when I'm just starting out and the clay is soft, and then once it starts to firm up, I would remove it. I would probably also build up supports. If I was doing this pose, I would have more support for the sculpture in clay. But yeah, this is one of my favorite types of clay. A little bit expensive. If you want a cheap clay, then just non-dry modeling clay that you can get from the Dollar Tree works really good. It comes in a bunch of colors, and then you melt them together to get a dark gray, or take out some of the darker colors to lighten it a little bit. And that works really well for sculpting. But if you're going to spend some money on clay, then I do I do like this Chavant NSP. Now I'm going to, now that I'm coming up to around the pelvis area, I'm going to make a little box. Well, it really starts with a triangle shape, but I'll make it a little bit more boxy. Here, let's squeeze things in a little bit. What advice would you give beginner artists sculpting? Well, if you want to become really good at sculpting, just good at representing the human form, then the best advice is just consistent, purposeful practice where you're studying and then you're sculpting, you're practicing, representing the form. Doing that consistently, there really is no substitute for that. You know, I should plug my sculpting courses, and if you're interested in the sculpting courses, then just get them through the Kickstarter that's going on right now, because there's a big discount for those digital sculpting courses. The figure sculpting fundamentals courses, where I would say most people should start out. And then I would also, like, another important thing is just like try to start to market your work right from the beginning. So maybe doing studies of things that where you could try to sell the study, whether that's doing it in polymer clay, or maybe you're doing you know, some popular, you know, character or something, some religious or other figure that people can relate to, and then actually just trying to market it and sell it from the beginning, because marketing and selling is a separate skill from creating good art. So I think if you're going to be an artist, you should be able to create good art, well-made art. But then marketing is kind of its own skill. So start practice, you know, building your social media. When I first started and wanted to improve sculpting, I decided that I would post on social media every day, and that would motivate me to be creating something every day. And I did that for a while just on my Instagram, and was able to build it over, you know, several years up to about almost 90,000 followers before it was hacked and deleted. And then I had to start over. But I started over, and now I'm around 27,000 or something. But just consistent posting and consistent practice is really, really helpful. So now I'm coming up the spine and just taking those like hot dog buns, wrapping it around the hot dog of the clay is a good way to think about it. The hot dog of the armature, I mean. So the wire armature is like the hot dog, and your bun is the clay. You're just stretching out these hot dog buns and then wrapping it around the armature. And this clay, I've mixed in a little bit of hard with the Chavant medium, so it's a little bit firmer than... Oh, actually, no, it's not. This is just regular Chavant medium. So this is... But it's a little bit stiff until it softens up, until you mold it a little bit. Then it gets more malleable. Yeah, some people are speaking in what appears to be Russian in the comments. I guess it doesn't translate. Somebody's saying, I'm sure soon there will be AI translation on YouTube and automatic translation. Yeah, the technology is getting there, which is pretty incredible that not only can you watch something from all around the world, but pretty soon you'll be able to speak with people that you don't even know their language, just because there's automatic translations and all these incredible tools that allow us to communicate, which is just awesome. Okay, so now I've come up the spine, also spreading it out to the shoulders. So now I can take pieces of clay and wrap it in kind of this triangle. And also just making like a thicker mound of clay. I know that this torso area needs to be filled at some point, so I can make it thicker in this area. I've got plenty of mass that needs to go on still. I can grab bigger chunks and just add those. And the way I recommend in additive sculpting is just sculpting thin, starting very, very thin, and then slowly adding form. So, but some of these safe areas, I know we have plenty of room to add clay, so I'll just thicken these up a little bit. Just gonna push play and kind of get try to get a sense of what's happening. Let's see, yeah, there's like a what is happening here? So well, I'll just continue to put clay on the arms, finish up that. And if sometimes if you're using this method of building wire armatures with a single wire, like a single thick wire, sometimes you might need to add additional wire wrapped around just to give the clay something to grab onto, especially if you're using a clay like monster clay that doesn't stick. It's not a very sticky clay. Chevron NSP has a little bit more tack to it. It sticks to metal a little bit easier, and so it's kind of firm where it solidifies the armature and stiffens things up. But if I was using like a monster clay or something, then I probably would have wanted to wrap some additional thinner wire around this entire armature just so that the clay sticks to it well. Okay, another hot dog bun right there, wrapping and squeezing it together and kind of pressing from different sides to round it off. Just trying to make things really, really simple at this point. Nothing too complex. Just covering the wire and getting a gesture that I feel comfortable with, that I feel like is working. And then the same on the other side. Yeah, this clay is a little bit cooler than I prefer for this early stage. Should have warmed it up, but that just means I'll get a hand workout, squeezing the clay on. And yeah, again, if you're interested in any of my sculpting courses or my ebooks, they're all steeply discounted over on the Kickstarter campaign. I've tried to make them a really good deal. So if you want any of those, go to the Kickstarter where I'm selling some of these sculpting tools that I'll be using once this sculpture sets up. Then I'll use some of these tools to sculpt it. Haven't quite got there yet, but I made those tools myself and I really like them, and I'd like to share them with those that are interested. So if you can, if you would like to get your own set of the AJK dab tool, there's a large one, a medium one, and a thin one for like smaller sculptures, and they were really fun to make. And I look forward to making some more of these for to fulfill those pledges for the campaign. And then it's got all of my ebooks, all my courses, including the stone sculpting course. I just did a video this week. There was another free video lesson talking about abstracted or subtractive versus additive sculpture, or sculpting in clay versus sculpting in stone, and why I think that clay sculpting is essential for stone sculpting. To understand form, you really need to know both. Because they're both really, really helpful. Someone's asking, have you ever sculpted in ZBrush? I did, like, the free ZBrush has like a free version of their sculpting tool that I fiddled with like once or twice. And I've messed around in, what is it? The other free one, the Blender. I've messed around in Blender a little bit, which is a little more of a general, like 3D program, but you can sculpt kind of in it. But I haven't really gotten into it. I really like traditional stuff. I like working with my hands, and there's something about physical clay that I prefer over digital. So I think I want to stick to this more traditional sculpting for now. Though I don't have anything against digital, I just prefer the tactile feel of natural clay, or I guess this isn't natural clay, this is oil and wax based clay, but I prefer the 3D working with my hands in actual physical space. I just like it more. And the NSP of this clay stands for non-sulfurated plasticine. So there's no sulfur in it, which the sulfur can kind of stink. Clays used to have a lot of sulfur because to get, I guess, the silky feel of it is what they used the sulfur for, but made it stink really bad and smell really bad. Smell really bad, so it was stinky and not pleasant to work with. I've had some sulfur clays, and I did not like the smell of them. The smell of the clay and the color, I think, are I probably worry too much about those characteristics. But if you're going to have a clay, you want it to be something that's pleasant to work with. Okay, now I'm going to come down to the legs because it's a little bit wobbly. And so by sculpting, starting with the legs and sculpting them a little bit more, I'll be able to stiffen up the pose, give it some more support, and that way I can support the rest of the sculpture. Let me do that. So again, this live stream I'm not gonna leave up. I'm gonna put it on. What do you put it? Well, I'm gonna keep it an exclusive live stream for Patreon patrons. And so big thank you to those over on Patreon that support and are participating in this month's challenge. Really appreciate it. So big thank you. And I'll try to do more regularly exclusive content and things for patrons. So I would like to build that value that I provide for those people that support monthly, because that is a big deal and really helps. So thank you. And most because I separated the hips quite a bit, so most of the mass that I'll need to add to the leg is going to be on the inner part of the inner thigh. So I'm just going to add a piece of clay and then kind of squish it, pull it to attach it. Let me pause this so I can look at the legs from specific angles. Let's look at it from the front. And I'm just kind of thinking about the silhouette or the outline, trying to get those high points in place so maybe it looks kind of funny here, but I'm seeing that the high point is around the area of the crotch, is the high point on this outside part of the leg. And so I want to make sure that that high point is in the right place. Just building out the thickness, the mass. Inside of the leg, the knee has quite a bit of mass to it, the bones of the knee. So I'm going to indicate where that is. Just looking at it from this front view, trying to capture the outline, focusing on the high points first. High points and then connecting those high points with the outline or the curve of the leg. Yeah, I think I'm making the legs too long, so I might need to move the foot up a little bit. Pretty sure that I will, so I'm just gonna use some clay to say that this foot is gonna be a little bit higher. Okay. So I see this high point on the outside of the calf. Just add some clay to say that this high point comes there. Then it bends inward. There's the knee on the inside. Piece of clay to indicate that, and smoothing it. Adding some more mass to this inner part of the leg, inner thigh. Pushing that high point on the outside leg a little bit. We got the gluteus medius over here that kind of merges in with the mass of the hips. Somebody's asking, hi Andrew, I'm interested, but unfortunately I have to go because it's already middle of the night here. Is it possible to watch this video later? It'll be on my Patreon, so if you're one of my Patreon patrons, then this video will be up there. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be doing live streams. Usually I do them a little bit earlier, but there will be other ones. But this one is going to be exclusively for the patrons, and this challenge, sculpting challenge that I'm doing here is also for a challenge for the patrons over on Patreon. So if you're interested, I hope you'll check that out and consider supporting. And if not, you know, check out my other free content. There's loads of free stuff, so there should be plenty more free. Now I'm going to switch to the side view. Let's do that a little bit. And try to capture some of those high points from the side. Basically thinking very two-dimensionally, just building up a wall of clay to match some of the high points. Not even getting it as thick as the reference, just saying like, okay, this is where the calf starts and ends. This is kind of behind the knee, the popliteal fossa, I think is what that area is called, behind the knee. And then the muscles of the back of the leg, building up that thickness a little bit. And then the glutes, we want to make sure that those are starting and around the right area, though they're going to feel too long because we're doing everything so skinny. We're not going to be going out as much as the reference right now. Everything should stay pretty thin at this point. So I don't know if you can see, but it's just kind of a wall of clay that is traveling in the direction of the glutes. the knee on the front side of this leg. And the popliteal fossa on the back side of this one. So I'm feeling how that's kind of stiffening up the figure as I get some clay added, which is helpful since there's no exterior support. It's all the interior armature that we built at the beginning. Why don't you put foil in some of the clay? I just prefer to work this way, especially when it's smaller. It doesn't use a ton of clay, and I feel like the aluminum foil, it just kind of sticks to the clay more than I like this Chavant clay, so it's kind of a pain to recoup the clay when I want to do that. And I just like building things out in clay instead of foil. But if it's a larger piece, or if I'm trying to save on clay, or if I'm doing like a polymer sculpture where the clay is more expensive and I'm going to bake it, then I will use aluminum foil to build things out. But for this one, I didn't feel like it's necessary. It's not large. It's not a super large sculpture, so it won't use I won't use a ton of clay. Usually I make the mistake of making the glutes too short, because when I'm sculpting thin, you don't need to, or by sculpting thin, when they're the right length, they look too long just because everything's so thin, because I'm like judging the width of the pelvis and everything. So I'm trying to make sure that the glutes are long enough. Maybe they're a little bit too long, but they might get moved a little bit as I add some of this back of the leg and muscles of the thigh and those sorts of things. Let's add, I mean, it's feeling a little bit more stable with the legs. Maybe I can start to move over and continue on with things like the torso. Though obviously the legs aren't finished, nothing's finished. I'm just ready to continue to add things where they need to be. We got kind of a high point. There's like the belly, right around the belly button, there's a high point where it kind of turns and then it goes back. Let's add some more thickness for the egg of the rib cage. Thinking very simplified. Everything should be as simple as you can make it, especially on these early stages. Just try to keep things simple. That's the way to go. bit of clay and then spreading it out. Yeah, that torso is looking too short, so I need to move this pelvis down a little bit. So I'll move the crotch down by just indicating that with some clay. That's being moved down. I think that will help to lengthen the torso just a little bit. And I didn't measure out the armature or anything, so everything's just kind of eyeballing it, though I could have been more precise at the beginning. That would have maybe helped. But it's kind of fun to eyeball it as well. Oh, so it says, yes, Sandra, I'm already your Patreon supporter. I'll watch it video later. Thanks again. See you soon, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being a supporter over on Patreon, and there will be more of these demos as we do the competition, so as we do this challenge. So I'll try to do them regularly, just like I did with the other one. Maybe I'll be able to finish this a little bit faster. This one is still not finished from last month's challenge, just because it was a little bit larger of a sculpture and I just didn't devote enough time to it. But this one I should be able to finish and by doing it a little bit smaller of a scale. Yeah, we need to move that crotch area down just a little bit, shorten the legs a little bit. And we can also bring the ground up. We still have room to do that. But it was just the legs that were feeling too long. I prefer them to be too long to too short, because usually beginners make them too short. So too long at least looks a little bit different. Or it looks like you did it on purpose, usually. Whereas too short looks like it was an accident, like you just don't know what you're doing. So if you're going to err, I recommend erring on the side of the legs too long, though I probably err on the side of the legs too long too much. Because it is an error. It's, not how they actually are. Look at it from some other angles, and I think once I finish up with this clay, I think I'll finish with this session. We'll call it for today, and then we'll do another one. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, I could do like a 1-hour session a couple times a week. And so if you're interested in that, be sure to join over on Patreon, and there's the link for this pose and everything like that. And we'll be doing more of these sculpture challenges over there. So I hope you'll consider joining, and I'll be doing more of these demos. And you can ask, more specific questions. You can get direct feedback if you're at $15 a month or more. You can get direct feedback. Send me images of your work, and I'll give you more specific ways of improving. And yeah, it should be fun. Let's see. I also might lift the shoulders up just a little bit. So let's see, how's it coming? Move that head over. You can see if I need to move things around, it's not super difficult. Just takes some moving things. All right. Well, yeah, I'll keep going until I'm out of clay. So just use up this last little bit. The head needs to be quite a bit larger. Let's add some mass to that. Oh yeah, the head's really small. Thing I checked that head because I'm not looking at it, not paying attention. I think I'll do that later, but then it really looks silly when the head is so tiny compared to the rest of the figure. I'd even add some of the indication of where the hair is just for fun, just because it gives us some more information. We're just about out of clay and out of time. So thank you guys. Thank you for those that have had questions and watched during the live stream on YouTube. And thank you for patrons who support. I really appreciate it. And please reach out to me if you're a patron and there's something that I could do to improve the experience. If there's something more that you want to see, some more like specific demos that you like or anything like that, please let me know, and I'll try to do those things because I do want to grow my Patreon. It's something that kind of I haven't I've put more focus in the online courses, but I think Patreon is a good place to get that motivation and more consistent feedback and push, especially through these types of challenges and things, to improve. So that's the goal, is to help those that want to improve their sculpting abilities. All right, just thinking, okay, if I could only add just one more piece of clay, where would I add it to make it feel a little bit more finished? Let's add some to here, the inner thigh. And I haven't even gotten to using the tools that my new tools that I've made. I'm really excited for those. Oh yeah, that looks better when that inner thigh has some more thickness to it. Okay, we are out of clay, so that's where we'll leave it for right now. This is what it's looking like. And so hopefully you can see even now that I'm trying to push the gesture, push the pose, have some fun with it. It's a simple pose, but you know, it's our job as the artist to imbue it with more interest and information and put our own spin on it. And so I hope you'll consider that as you're doing these sculpture challenges. It doesn't have to be an exact replica, though it's always impressive when you can do that. But ideally, you'd have something that's more interesting, that has more feel, more life to it than the photo references, than the original. You're trying to improve it in some way. So, all right, stay creative, stay productive. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.